All right, welcome back to Chat CFP. TJ Pittenger, Graham Coffey with you. And Graham, we're less than a week away from the final rankings coming out. We've said this every week that, hey, we'll be a little shorter this week, but we'll see. Once we get talking, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But
what are you gonna do?
No real big surprises. But before we get into that, man, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Just the loss that A&M took on Saturday. When that happened, it was like, all right, well, here we go. Georgia's, we're going to cover an SEC championship this week. So we're trying to do that and get ready for early signing day. UGA and Florida State are playing basketball, so all sorts of stuff going on here in Northeast Georgia right now.
It never stops. So let's start here. I was pretty surprised by this, not because I don't think it should have happened, because as I said in Northeast Georgia, or I guess Southwest North Carolina, I was a little surprised that Alabama was ranked behind Notre Dame last week. I don't understand why they were. I also don't understand why after a 7-point win against Auburn that they were moved up. But whether I understand that or not, I do think the committee is right by ranking Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. I think Alabama has been the more impressive team for 12 weeks and 12 games, and it's been more than 12 weeks. So I think they got that right, but that was interesting to me, and it probably is good news for Alabama because barring a 30-point, which maybe with all of Kirby's frustration, they're, Georgia's due for one of those, but barring like a 30-point, like just meltdown by Bama,
just an ass whooping. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it feels like they're relatively safe by moving up ahead of Notre Dame and letting that cluster of teams behind them, BYU, Miami, Notre Dame, all kind of be fighting for that last spot.
No, I agree with that. I think that, this is what Hunter Yurachek said, the committee chair, basically on the whole, Alabama Notre Dame thing said the debate was one of the fiercest in the committee room. And then he cited how Auburn has been a tough place to play for a lot of teams, including Georgia, and said the committee, quote, gave them a little respect for getting up 17-0 and then putting Auburn away with a, quote, gutsy call on 4th and 2. So
the criteria, I think they got it right, but the things people say are ridiculous.
It's absurd, dude. It's absurd.
They blew a 17-0 lead, and they won the game. Then that's all that matters.
Blew a 17-point lead to a 5-win team. We're going to throw them a little respect
for blowing a 17-point lead that they had the game in full control.
Oh, and by the way,
it's a below 500 team.
What was it? 4 different bailout calls on third downs.
Oh my gosh!
In the second half,
penalties.
That was uncomfortable to watch. Just for the record, even as an SEC guy, I was like, this is how conspiracies get started.
Yeah.
So, anyways, though, I look, does Alabama have a better resume than Notre Dame? There's zero question about that. I'm sorry. Beaten up on Stanford, it does not impress me. And I'm going to side rail our entire conversation here because real quickly, TJ, I got to tell you what happened to me about 2:15 a.m. Eastern on Saturday night, really Sunday morning at that point. I had Stanford plus the 31.5, I believe it was, in that game. And I had a couple parlays that were hinging on Stanford plus 31.5. And I'm sitting there on my couch after halftime. Notre Dame's up like 28-0 at the break or whatever it was. Marcus Freeman rolls out his starters. He's bombing it away, throwing it down the field, trying to do everything he can to impress this committee, right? And Stanford, all of a sudden, man, they get going a little bit, and they come from behind, score a couple touchdowns, and they cut the spread down. And then Notre Dame, dude, they hit a long touchdown. And it's like, well, shit, we're cooked here because let's be honest, Stanford couldn't really move the ball. But Stanford miraculously comes down the field, scores a touchdown with a few minutes left. And Notre Dame is still throwing the football at this point up like 30 points. And so they come all the way back down the field, and they're trying to score one final touchdown to cover the spread, and they fumble the ball in the backfield, and time runs out. So it was a great moment for me, and I felt like a karmic boomerang for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame running up the score on poor Frank Reich in probably the last game he'll ever coach in his long coaching career. So I think it's ironic that they put all that effort into trying to impress the committee and they got bumped down a spot. And I think the reason they got bumped down a spot really had nothing to do with the results of that game, but it had everything to do with the fact that still, after winning 10 straight games, Notre Dame has still beaten nobody. They remind me, honestly, of like some of the Georgia teams from like the early 2010s, kind of Mark Richt, Aaron Murray era. I think 2011 Georgia, they started 0-2 against Clemson in South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, or somebody like that. And then they won 10 straight and they climbed up into the top 10, top 7, something like that. And then they faced 2011 LSU in the SEC championship game and they got worked, right? Like this Notre Dame team is kind of like that. Have they lost anybody terrible? No, but they also haven't beaten anybody good. And considering the fact that the committee tonight, when asked about Vanderbilt, takes them to task saying they don't have a signature win and they only played 2 ranked teams and they lost to both of them. Well, guess who else you described? I mean, Notre Dame beat USC. Okay, so we'll give them that. But like, that's not, I don't consider beating USC a signature win. It's not a signature win. USC is not a good football team. They're an okay football team, but I think they did this to remove any doubt, right, and not paint themselves in a corner. And if BYU wins on Saturday against Texas Tech, guess what? Alabama's still in unless you punish them for losing to the number 3 team in the country. And if Alabama wins on Saturday against Georgia, then both of them will be in. And it's all clean now for the SEC and for Alabama. I don't think Alabama has anything to worry about, really. So I think that they did the right thing there, because I don't think it would be fair to BYU for them to win on Saturday against the only team they've lost to. So they would have now beaten every team on their schedule, but they wouldn't get in the playoff. That's not fair.
Yeah.
But it also wouldn't be fair, I think, to Alabama to be punished for BYU upsetting Texas Tech.
Just before we go on, I will remind you that all of our content is brought to you by Sleeper this year. We appreciate Sleeper for their support and hope that you are using their app with the code CFA for a 100% match up to $100. Make sure you check their terms and conditions, because terms of use do apply. Make some money with us live on Wednesday on the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction when we pick the more or less games. Yeah, I think what becomes interesting with the SEC, and we were talking about this off air, we'll get back to the Notre Dame conversation, because the team that they, we keep talking about with head-to-head with Miami, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But on, Bama and Georgia, the committee has an interesting decision to make if Bama is to win that game.
Yeah.
Right now, Georgia's sitting at number 3, Texas Tech at number 4. If Texas Tech wins, I think they certainly, I don't see a world where Texas Tech wins and they get dropped. So I think 3 of your top 4 seeds are fairly locked up. Like, I just don't really see the path that would exist where the committee would drop Ohio State or Indiana behind Oregon into 5th, right?
No, so I don't think so.
I think as long as Texas Tech wins, your top 3 of your top 4 seeds are locked up. What do they do with the SEC if Bama beats Georgia? The question would be, do you just move Georgia down a spot and let them retain a top 4 seed, because you're not going to, now again, the way the game goes matters. If either team wins by 17, your answer is maybe a little easier, but let's say we keep it within a touchdown for the purpose of the conversation. Bama wins by a touchdown, loses by a touchdown, wins by a field goal, loses by a field goal. Do you, again, Georgia loses that. Are you jumping? Like, there's no way they would not have at least one representative from the SEC there in the top 4. I would think that Commissioner Sankey wouldn't, there'd be some precedence given to that. But are you going to give Georgia a first round bye for losing that game and losing to that team twice? Are you going to jump Bama from, 9th to 4th because they won that game? Maybe that is the most realistic at that point, because I don't know if there's another good option. I think you got to drop Georgia a couple of spots for losing it. And, both teams would have 2 losses at that point, right? They'd both be 11-2, and you're going to put an SEC champion above them, right?
I mean, if you want to see an absolute stink, watch what happens if you've got 3 Big Ten teams in the top 4 seeds.
I just
if you think that, if you think the SEC is pissed off,
and then the 4th one is the Big 12. Like, it's not even one SEC. Right.
That's what I'm saying. And like having 3 Big Ten teams up there, by the way, who all played each other. Well, Indiana played Oregon and Ohio State played Indiana, and I think that's the point, right? Like, I'm sorry, TJ. I know that you are not trying to turn your channel into a SEC channel. But these Big Ten teams do not play anybody, bro. They don't. I credit Ohio State for going out of conference and beating Texas. The rest of the Big Ten, like the way these schedules are made, it's just like, hey, how many dog shit teams can we pack into 9 conference games for each of our contenders? Oh, yeah. Okay. We can pack 7 to 8 dog shit teams into our contender schedules. So we're going to do that. And look, that's where we're at, man. We continue. What is the point of having a committee? Seriously, what is the point of having a committee if all they're going to do is rank teams by the loss column and group them by the loss column? And if that's what happens with a Georgia loss, where, if Georgia loses and Alabama's not a top 4 seed, then, look, the real answer to this, and I'm almost afraid to say this out loud, but like the real answer to that becomes, what would all 16 SEC athletic directors think about the promises, or maybe not promises, but the things they were told by the league before they voted to move their schedule to 9 conference games next year?
Yeah.
Like how genuine does that feel at that point? How much do you feel like strength of schedule is being taken into account in this conversation? So, like, honestly, there's part of me that feels like it would be a good thing to set some precedent of, hey, like, we don't have to be totally ruled by the loss column, but nothing this committee has done to this point really makes me think that would happen.
So, gun to my head, if you're asking me right now, Bama wins this on Saturday, which we'll preview that on another episode here in a little bit, so people can certainly go check it out. But my gut says they would move Alabama into the top 4. They probably give.
Would you have a problem with that?
I don't think so, because you look at the teams, because I don't want to rank teams by the loss column. Now, there is some value in doing that, but Alabama's okay. Here's what it would be. Alabama's 8 right now. Alabama qualifying for and winning the SEC would make them, even though the head-to-head didn't go their way, it would be more valuable to me than Oklahoma's resume. It would
Alabama's
also be more valuable. Say what?
Alabama's 9th right now, just for the record.
Right, 9th. Sorry, Alabama. Their resume with an SEC championship and a win in Athens and a win in Atlanta would to me be better than Oklahoma's, Texas A&M's, Ole Miss's, and Oregon's resume. Like the 4 teams they would need to jump, because I don't think they jump Texas Tech. I think Tech would move up to 3rd, and Bama would move to 4th. And so Bama's resume to me, even with the bad loss in week 1, which losing in week 1, you do get forgiven for. We're seeing it with Notre Dame. Bama's resume, again, with 1 less loss than A&M and Ole Miss, would still be better, because it would carry an SEC championship with it and 2 wins against the top 5 team. And then, if you want to have, how do you, we've seen the committee ignore head-to-head. I don't think you can ignore head-to-head when it happens twice, once at the beginning of the year, once at the end of the year. So Georgia gets bumped out and Bama gets bumped in. I don't think I'd have a very big problem with it. I think I'd be fine with them jumping 5 spots to get to number 4.
Okay, now let me ask you this: how far do you drop Georgia out? Because they still have that win over an 11-1 Ole Miss,
5th or 6th. You know,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so if you're Georgia, you basically, you're either gonna win an SEC title or host a home playoff game, and probably get to play the G5 team. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, not bad at all. If in fact he would never admit this, but I'm sure Georgia's athletic director would, he doesn't want to lose the game, but like these ADs want revenue. Like getting a home playoff game in Athens, like there's part of him. It's kind of like you're a winner either way. Like you want to win the game. I'm not saying that they want to lose ever, but like there's a little bit of them that's like, oh man, darn, we lost. And then all that revenue from a home playoff game comes in.
If this wasn't Alabama and there wasn't so many narratives,
right. Kirby and all that.
And Kirby and Bama and all that, like I might go so far as to say that, you would prefer that path.
Yeah.
And playing, we'll warm up against a G5 team.
Yes. But yeah, so I don't think he wants to lose, but I think he would be like, oh shucks, it's a good result for UGA either way. Now, I will say maybe the caveat for both these teams, if either of them do get absolutely mollywopped or there's a major injury, like we've seen things like that, which obviously not. I mean,
back last year,
yeah. Could they get dropped a little bit more? Ty Simpson goes down in this game, which again, certainly not cheering for that, but like. That could be a problem if Bama. Now, if they win, they're fine. But like if he was to go down and they lose, they might drop them out.
That's the disaster scenario. That's the disaster scenario. Is you lose. I think it would have to be Simpson, which would suck, dude. But like if you lost Simpson to a bad injury, and Keelan Russell comes in as the backup, and Georgia picks him off 3 times and routes Bama, like this is gonna be a tough one. And honestly, I think if you're smart and you're any team that suffers an injury this weekend, be it an SEC team or otherwise, you do not release any details on that injury until
for sure
after the field is released on Sunday.
Right,
there's no reason to put it out.
Yeah, I mean, if Jordan Travis's leg would not have broken in half. Right, like literally live on TV. They also didn't. There was no precedent for this, so it hadn't happened. But if a situation like that was to happen again, and a guy just turned an ankle, or even if he tore an ACL, you should like, just a little hyperextension, he'll be fine for. Teams will absolutely lie about this. This has nothing to do. Well, we're still in the SEC a little bit, but did you see that Weiss is going to supposedly coach the first round of the playoff? Like that's like it would not. Now, I have no inside info on this. Like, I've not been told anything. But, like, once the rankings come out and they announce the playoff field, what's to keep Weiss from saying, just kidding, I'm going to Baton Rouge. Like, y'all figure it out. And I'm not trying to allude that I've heard that or anything like that. But to me, that felt somewhat strategic of like, hey, we're just trying to get that info out there. We just want you to know that there's some stability here. And, I think if Ty Simpson breaks his or has a season-ending injury, I think Kalen DeBoer should get up at the press conference and say he's good to go. He's good for next week. We've evaluated him. He'll be there because you need to get in the playoff, and the committee should not decide. Again, I'm a scorned hater because of this, but the committee should not decide to leave a team out because a player got injured. So yeah, if I'm Kalen DeBoer, I get up there and lie. And
for sure. I think that's. Georgia kind of had a similar situation with Carson Beck last year. They won the SEC title, and when they did that, they were a guaranteed berth. But, I'll say this, like, there's certainly been lots of Georgia injuries over the years that I've reported on, and details on that one were much harder to come by on Saturday night and Sunday morning than most.
So I think we're good on the SEC there.